You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me today are Jeff Branke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the manufacturing industry going forward. All right, before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Also, we're live every Friday, so make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine to get a notification and join us live. Is anyone there now? No, not yet. Okay. All right, before we get started, I'd like to ask Anna how she's doing.
Is anyone there now?
Still silence. Jeff?
I'm good. I'm just anticipating all the flood of comments coming from the live viewers.
Yeah,
because you've made that very clear now.
Yeah, they get like a late start, you know? It's like they like to get the coffee, then come in.
Yep.
You know, the intro's already over. They want to get into the meat of it.
Just in time for the oil eater commercial.
Yeah, they're like, David's going to tell us to subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing that.
That's
so
right.
I'll just skip ahead.
So let's get to it. Before we get started, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
And we're back. And before we get into our first story, just a reminder that you can click the link below, get yourself a free sample of Oil Eater. All right. Our first story this week, ammo manufacturer sentenced for failing to pay taxes. From 2013 to 2016, Curtis Allen Perry operated an ammunition manufacturing business in Laramie, Wyoming that sold Ammocan brand products. This week, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay more than $350,000 in restitution for failure to pay employee taxes. According to the Department of Justice, Perry withheld federal taxes from his employees' paychecks, but didn't pay the IRS. Instead, he used the money to support himself and his business. He also evaded federal excise taxes on ammunition sales. Anna, Perry pleaded guilty to 12 counts of tax evasion following his indictment. And we've seen a lot of radical penalties, some not at all, some getting a lot more time. What were your thoughts on sort of the penalty for the crime here?
Yeah, so the IRS takes this very seriously. They view this as theft of IRS or government money, obviously. And it's my understanding that the law was written in a way so they can pierce the corporate veil, so to speak. So they can actually go after the individual responsible, even an individual who assigned this task to somebody else who didn't complete the task.
Oh, wow.
They can be on the hook for this. And it's structured in a way that you can't simply like fold your business, file bankruptcy. Like this can actually follow you for, until you pay it back or whatever. So they took, Mr. Perry down, and rightfully so. I believe this type of crime, it's white collar crime, right? I feel like it should be judged harshly simply because I think of all of the businesses who, or even the individuals out there, honestly, who like bust their butts to pay taxes. Yeah. Who go without, who, kind of take a more conservative approach because they have to.
Yeah, who sacrificed to do it right?
Yeah, you those are built-in costs. You got to do them. That's stressful, right? To like shoulder that burden of taxation, and somebody just skips it. You can't just let them go with a slap. But I don't know. It's because the penalties can be criminal. 18 months, supervised release, restitution. I don't know. Bad, but could have been worse.
Could have been worse.
I feel like this individual should probably be thankful that it was not worse because it went on for kind of a long time. And so they could have, I mean, they identified that it was willful. And that's a big strike against you in a case like this. So,
well, and I'll get into it in a bit, but I mean, it was also not the first time.
Yeah.
Jeff, your thoughts on, did this successfully pierce the corporate veil?
What an outstanding phrase.
Yeah.
Turned by Anna there.
Like a punk
Fantastic.
band.
That's like a documentary title or something.
I was reading some
like
legal documents before I was making notes for the podcast. Mm. So
well done.
So I got like super lawyerly about it, I guess.
You're going to get into the background a little bit of this guy. Definitely someone whose business ethics could be questioned, I think, would be a safe way of stating that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he had gotten into trouble before. But what's interesting, too, is when you look at this time frame, there was an opportunity here for both of the businesses that he had started. There was a huge issue in terms of ammunition shortages during this time.
Right.
There was an issue in terms of getting materials like copper and steel. The prices were really high. He had moved his business from one state to another and actually even got a pat on the back from the Wyoming governor when they were coming in because they thought it was going to be increasing manufacturing jobs in the state and things like that. So there was an opportunity here if he was going to manufacture ammunition. People during the Obama administration were just rushing to get bullets. There was a lot of paranoia over what was going to go on from a political, social perspective. So there was an opportunity here. He obviously failed to capitalize on it. Mm-hmm. You can definitely question whether he had the abilities or capabilities to take advantage of a market demand and need. Mm-hmm. But he went about it obviously the wrong way, and it's good to see he got caught.
Yeah, so Ammocan opened in 2013 in Wyoming and then remained in operation until 2016 when the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This is according to the Laramie Boomerang, the greatest name of any newspaper ever. He did the same thing in Grand Junction, Colorado, for a business with the same name. So records show that Perry was hit with a federal tax lien for more than $30,000 in taxes that went unpaid in 2014. So essentially, he got caught in Colorado, just went over the border and set up the same shop in Wyoming. Like literally, if you look at a map, he went one step into Wyoming and he's like, no, this is what we'll manufacture now.
Oh, man.
It was just, so at first I was kind of in the same thought, Jeff, where I'm like, well, maybe he was just reinvesting in the business, and he was making bets that he was hoping would pay off and the money didn't come in time to pay taxes. We've definitely seen that before where people got overextended and, sort of bet on the company and it just didn't cash. This seemed a little bit more malicious to me where he was like, well, all right, so I got caught in Colorado. What about Wyoming?
I got an idea.
Did he call his first company like Maverick Ammunition or something like that too? I mean,
yeah, but it was Ammocan. So it was like known as Ammocan. Okay. So maybe like officially it was Maverick.
It's just like, that's really the name you're going to pick. The guy who's going to get caught cheating the IRS is going to go with Maverick.
Right.
Huh?
Welcome to Irish Cheat Ammunition Sales. No, so it was, Anna, to your point, I thought that the crime could have been, or the penalty could have been much more stiff. Mm-hmm. And he does have to pay a little bit of restitution, stuff like that. That's at least a little bit, it's interesting to see when for other crimes, for other things, people typically kind of skate on it.
Yeah, although in this case, I feel like restitution should be the bare minimum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, what's kind of interesting, too, is we see this with a lot of tech companies. They're not allowed to be the CEO or whatever of that type of company forever. That's like a court order. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think this guy deserves that as well. Let's keep him out of this business.
No more ammo companies for life.
So like when he gets out, Ammocan, Montana.
Yeah. Watch out, North Dakota.
Oh, that's probably a sound location for it. All right.
Nobody's looking at North Dakota. Nobody's going to go there.
All right. Our next most popular story this week. DeLorean reveals the Alpha5 EV. Last weekend, DeLorean offered a more definitive look at the all-electric version of the mythical brand. If you remember, the company had an ad during the Super Bowl that teased a comeback, but it showed little more than a shadowy profile. Well, they call it the Alpha5, and it will debut in the middle of August at the Pebble Beach Cour d'Elegance in California.
Well done.
That is how they say it.
Is that how they say it?
That is how they all say it.
Cool. Okay.
Concours d'Elegance. Did I miss the con? Did I just say Cour d'Elegance?
You're not guttural enough. I think just You gotta get in there. Yep.
The car will still sport the signature gull wing doors and rear window louvers, but it will be longer and wider than its predecessors. The Alpha5 will have a 300-mile range and a top speed of 155 miles per hour. It will also go 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.99 seconds, which after last week's Bentley's brutal 1.5 seconds just seems a little more reasonable, a little bit more livable. Because it needs a tie-in to its lone cultural bright spot in the company's history, Autocar reports that only 88 track-only models will be within the launch edition. Anna, this news is heavy.
Yeah, and we thought the future was never promised, but here we are looking at gull wing doors in real life.
Wow, well done. You were on fire today.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So CEO Joost de Vries told Autocar that this will have performance to match the Mercedes AMG GT and maybe the higher end Porsche Taycan. But it's more catering to the internal combustion crowd than trying to become a faster Tesla Model S Plaid.
Nice.
Which I thought was interesting, considering that his leadership experience comes from both Tesla and Karma. Mm-hmm. He's an EV guy.
Yeah.
He says he's trying to target this to a different buyer. But when you look at what they're doing to start, I do not understand this approach at all. So like this, you mentioned the first run, it's a limited run, 88 track only models. They are not going to be street legal. So, all right. 88 people with tracks. And then they're also associated with an NFT. And to me, this takes a niche vehicle and markets it in a way that's even more niche.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't understand that. Like, I almost feel like the NFT craze, which is obviously closely aligned with crypto enthusiasts, is like becoming more and more exclusionary in the sense that you either buy into that hype or you don't.
Right.
And keep in mind, more than 70% of Americans do not know what an NFT is.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess
I think that even the other 30%, they're still not sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they've heard of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I guess like beside it being like a unique approach, like I don't know if it opens a lot of doors as a strategy. Like if you look at who has a lot of money to be buying like a luxury or performance car, you know, who has the disposable income to do that? Like it's not.
He only needs 88.
Well, I know, but if you exclude kind of mentally exclude like a huge demographic of people, 70% of Americans who are like, what's an NFT? I don't get it. This is too futuristic for me, whatever, I'm out. And maybe it won't go that way. But to me, like track only models, what?
Yeah.
And then also this NFT thing, like I just think it's like sort of diversionary and it puts this weird, I don't know, rigid structure around it of like who the buyer should be.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough of those people out there.
You don't think, Jeff? So the allure of an NFT that'll allow you to drive your custom track DeLorean Alpha5 in the metaverse, that's not enough?
In the metaverse. Jeff, first,
let's not go to the metaverse, all right?
First, Jeff, explain what an NFT is for our audience.
A non-fungible token?
Oh!
All right, I was trying to test you there.
There you go, he's got
it. Yeah. Anna, which annoys you more?
Yeah.
Personal aircraft type options or cryptocurrency?
Hands down cryptocurrency.
Yeah. I can't even.
I'm going to step aside from that because every time I think I kind of understand it, something else comes up and I don't. All I know is they're losing their butts right now on that stuff. So when it comes to the DeLorean here, the kiss of death, anytime you roll out something new and you say it's not like anything else, and then you compare it to your three biggest competitors, in this case, Mercedes, Porsche, and Tesla, that's not a good thing, especially when all of this stuff, while it would have been great 3 or 4 years ago, it's not special anymore. None of this stuff makes it stand out or be unique. So what they're basically counting on is people are going to flock to the DeLorean because of its brand name and everything else that's been built up in social culture, basically, and the perceptions of it. Now, I'll say this much. It's a great looking vehicle. Yeah. It looks awesome. They did the right things in terms of making it longer, especially just giving it a little bit more stature, I guess, just physical presence. But I don't get how this is going to work. I don't see how there is enough people out there saying, you know what, I want an EV. I'm willing to pay more for it, as opposed to these other 5 manufacturers who've been making cars for decades. I'm going to go to this new one that's got a really sketchy background.
Yeah.
That had, when the DeLorean was out there, forget everything else that was involved with John DeLorean. The car itself sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, it handled poorly. It leaked water. It was not a good vehicle. Now, hopefully they've addressed all of those engineering issues, but still, this is a big swing. I do not see this working out.
No. So that was one of my first thoughts is, so if this goes bad, is it on you for buying it or the company for even attempting it?
At least it's not stainless steel body. I mean,
I want this to succeed. I don't like that I'm essentially priced out of at least 10 years of iterations of this. But if it was price competitive, looking at it, it is a beautiful car. I really like the concept sketches with a simple infotainment system and dash that actually is a lot more elegant, or not as obtrusive as the ones that you see in Tesla, like those monster 17-inch screens. So I really liked a lot of things about it, except the fact that, it's likely not in any sort of price point for me, or really street legal. They didn't really give plans for when.
It's not even targeted towards you. All of those vehicles that we talked about, you can buy them and drive them on the road. This is really niche. And with all of the marketing they did around it, that's just sort of a disappointing rollout.
No, that's we had talked about it a few episodes ago about, other cars with nostalgia that could have an EV tie-in and come back, because there are people with heavy nostalgia in both Gen Z and millennials that this would appeal to. And I'm one of them. And then it's but not going to be in the cards anytime soon.
You back on the gremlin train here?
Oh, yeah. The EV gremlin's going to be a thing.
I saw a Datsun this weekend.
Oh, really?
Whoa.
It was a wagon. Yeah, it was pretty sweet, I have to admit.
So, okay, the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance in California is a competition of elegance. And as snooty as that sounds, does the new DeLorean win in a competition of elegance?
I don't know if I'd call it elegant.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the word. I mean, it looks great. I agree with you. I think the design is awesome. But the one I was thinking about this too and doing some research, if there would have been a different car in Back to the Future, are we still talking about the DeLorean?
Oh, no.
If they had been flying a Firebird, I mean, are we looking at this?
No. I just want to go to this event in California, get all dressed up and be like, she sure is pretty though. Fine looking car right there. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Defective battery pack sparks fire inside Rivian plant. A fire broke out at the Rivian Automotive plant over the weekend in Normal, Illinois. Workers had to evacuate the battery assembly area when the defective battery pack ignited. When firefighters arrived, there was a battery pack in thermal runaway. That's when a lithium-ion cell enters an uncontrollable self-heating state as a result of a fire or electrical fault. Firefighters extinguished the fire and then continued to flow water on the pack to keep it cool to prevent further thermal runaway from occurring. Once the battery pack was put out and cooled, firefighters moved the fire-damaged battery outside of the plant and began ventilating the smoke from the building. When they were outside, they again continued to cool the pack with water until it was released to Rivian engineers for the investigation and disassembly. The exact cause of the fire is underway, but the exact cause of the fire is under investigation, but the battery pack had been in a repair area and was being tested when the thermal runaway began. Jeff, no one was injured, but some test booth equipment was damaged. Overall, it seems like this wasn't necessarily a surprise because it was already a damaged pack in an area where it was kind of being investigated. However, you still don't like to see an EV fire.
Right. And that's obviously why this gets a lot of attention, especially when it is Rivian, which is one of those that we've kind of propped up a little bit as showing a tremendous amount of promise. It seems like they have the right pacing, the right model. They have everything squared away and going in the right direction. And if this is a different type of product in a different type of plant, we're probably not talking about as much. It's sort of not that there's any way to just brush aside any type of industrial accident or plant fire, but it's one of those things that can happen.
Yeah.
And in this instance, obviously it gets a lot more attention. One thing I wanted to correct from last week and just also kind of putting out a different vibe in terms of some of the public misperceptions about EVs. The stat that I quoted was from the NHTSA. And what they did is they looked at 100,000 vehicles, a battery electric car like these, you're going to see about 25 vehicle fires per 100,000 on the road. Okay. When you go up to a gas powered car, it's about 1,300. Oh. And then when you go to a hybrid electric, it's about 3,400.
Whoa.
Every 100,000. Now the
3,400?
The scale of the fire, is managed.
It's a runaway fire.
Yeah, it doesn't mean things are good. It could be also be something that there was in a crash, whatever. So they are safer, but these types of headlines do perpetuate some of those misperceptions. So it's important to keep that in mind. The other thing that made me think about is even though it was very small, quickly contained, I think they turned control back over to Rivian in a matter of hours from the fire department. You do wonder what this could potentially do for a lot of Rivian's plans in terms from a production perspective. Before all this supply chain craziness, they were looking at trying to get 25,000 cars out this year, or vehicles out this year. That's probably not going to happen because of the supply chain issues with all those metals and everything that they need for the batteries. The other thing is right now they've got about 1,200 trucks that they have been able to deliver so far this year. You just wonder this type of setback, even though it seems controlled, internally, this could be a much bigger deal. You don't know exactly what they were looking at. They knew it was a battery pack that wasn't working right. What does this mean bigger picture for Rivian? I think those are some of the questions, whether they're fair or not, that are going to come up here.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for the reminder that my car is a death trap.
You're welcome.
It's a hybrid. Yep, it's all right. The anxiety had just quelled from last week.
That's what we're here for, David.
Week over week, we'll bring it up.
Very good. Anna, what were your thoughts on the Rivian fire?
Yeah, it doesn't really help with consumer confidence. As Jeff relayed with those stats, it's like, it's too bad that these are still making national news and anytime an electric car or electric car battery starts on fire. But it is important, I think, that it's still being reported because there is significance to how these fires can be difficult to put out and whether the average fire department is sort of equipped to deal with these incidents of thermal runaway. Because those, when that happens, I think it can be hard to put those fires out. They can reignite.
Yeah. That's why they kept dousing it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
In this case, the firefighters in Normal seem to have done an amazing job of continuing to tend to this battery in order to keep it cool long enough where the danger of that was eliminated. I think firefighters tend to understand this, especially considering all the fires started probably by consumer electronics. Like, they're on top of it, but good to see this play out in real life.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately for Rivian, the bad press, is their name's on the building, right? Oh, yeah. And I think, we've been talking more and more about vertical integration among automakers and how a lot of them are trying to take on this battery production. And, test fires are going to happen. This kind of stuff, this is going to happen again, right?
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, your name is on the building when that's where that's taking place, right? Versus like where it used to reflect on some sort of anonymous supplier, or maybe no one's even talking about it. Here, it's going to reflect on the OEM. And I do think that that's going to, not help the cause of trying to, increase consumer confidence in these vehicles.
No, and according to Car Scoops, this is actually the third fire at that plant in 7 months. That is tied to a battery. Again, they were faulty batteries previously, but battery fires nonetheless.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention, I believe that the Belvedere Fire Department also happened. And I just feel like there's going to be one person from the Belvedere Fire Department listening to this being like, hey, it wasn't all normal, guys. It wasn't all normal. It was us too.
Thank you, Belvedere.
Yeah. Jeff, to your point, to the scale of the fire, work resumed less than 4 hours later. So that's a tribute to both the staff and the fire department for sort of putting it out. And what I'm interested in is like, how do you ever know if it's actually out? Because they kind of kept hitting it with water inside, dragged it outside, kept hitting it with water. And then it's kind of just like, it could still like run away.
It's a temperature thing, right? That's what makes it so weird. It's not about putting out the fire. It's about reducing the temperature of that battery. You would think it's kind of crazy that there wouldn't be some sort of chemical treatment that would be available that's better than water.
Yeah, hit it with baking soda.
Down.
Just dump the bucket of baking soda.
Don't do that, but because somebody will, and then you're liable.
Oh, never mind. I also think it's interesting to see what, if anything, we hear about the investigation or if this is the end of it. All right. Loyal listener Seth reached out and said he saw an 86 Celica on the road this week. That is a rare thing, Seth. Thank you for bringing that
random.
up. Yeah, this is quite a random point. I wonder if it's at all tied to the fact that producer Eric owns and drives an 86 Celica. I wonder.
Never know.
I don't know. We'll just have to check his Instagram and his Twitter and his Facebook and see if there's anything on there. All right. Our next most popular story. Ford CEO sees electric vehicle price war as EV costs decline. Ford CEO Jim Farley says the EV industry is heading to a huge price war. Farley expects the cost of building EVs to fall in coming years to the point where automakers will be battling each other for sales of EVs priced around $25,000, which can't happen soon enough. The CEO spoke at the Bernstein Strategic Decisions Conference on Wednesday and noted that it currently costs much more to build an EV than it does to make a gas-powered car. The battery cost alone is $18,000. The charger adds another $3,000. However, big cost reductions are coming with new battery chemistries that use fewer expensive and scarce precious metals like nickel and cobalt. Another bonus is that EVs will take less time and labor to build. Ford also plans to cut distribution costs by cutting the expense of keeping a large supply on dealer lots and cutting advertiser costs. Anna, Farley says that Ford, like Tesla, might not actually have to use advertising to sell EVs, which adds up to $600 per vehicle. But if you're not the market leader and not first to market, you're going to need to put a message out there so people know what's going on. That can't cut advertising.
That's your theory.
I mean, no, that's how the world works.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they'll be like every company that's like, we're just going to take it to social media and go viral every day.
That's right. Tweet it.
And then a year later, they're like, yeah, we upped our marketing budget. So overall, I think this was maybe a bit of an obvious point being made. But it's one that I think needs to be reinforced a bit because there's a lot of people out there, I think, that are in wait and see mode with EVs. Mm-hmm. We recently ran a story that cited updated figures on where consumers stand on their appetite for electric vehicles. There was some interesting developments. So it was a JD Power report. And they said that 24% of their survey respondents said that they are very likely to buy an EV. And that was an increase of 4 points over last year. Which is pretty significant, right, in 1 year. Mm-hmm. So they say that interest is increasing, but they did point out that the demographic who finds EVs most appealing is people with higher incomes. And that's clearly because to date, there is not a wide variety of affordable electrics available. I mean, again, duh. So I don't know. Right now, I think EVs will remain sort of a niche market because they're really only available to people who have an ideological reason to spend that kind of money or, just kind of like a personal interest in EVs. You know, they're too expensive right now for someone to just like roll the dice. I don't know. I've said the same thing about so we put solar panels on our roof last summer, as you know, and it costs a lot of money. Yeah. And I've said this to other people before, like there's an ROI on it, but it's not quick. So unless you want to do this because you feel it's your responsibility to the environment or, you have the money to do so, you're not going to do it probably because it's too expensive for the average person to just, invest in. At this point, there's not enough affordable options so these barriers exist, right? And they do need to be removed. And I fully believe that as the technology scales and the competition creates a more level playing field, that there is going to be a cost reduction. Yeah. And there will be a price war. Right. And more people will get on board at that point, I do believe, because there will be other reasons to do so beside asking people to just roll the dice. Right. And do it out of the goodness of their hearts. There will be opening the door to lower income purchases and more entry level purchases. So
well, I mean, but to your first point, that's what happens with every product ever made ever what there was demand for.
Exactly. But I don't know that the average consumer thinks about that. I think maybe that's a point that does need to be made by automakers saying look, we have a lot of this stuff in the works. We are a couple years out from this being a completely different game, Yeah.
Jeff, does the prospect of an impending price war, if you promote that, do you almost are you exciting enough people that they'll be able to afford an EV later down the road, or are you almost suppressing some people from, buying in now?
I think this is one of the dumbest things I've heard an automaker say.
That's
because
a high bar.
All right.
Why would you do that? Why would you come out and say, hey, look, you know what? There's a lot of good news. Costs are coming down. We're going to be able to make this more cost effectively. And you're going to feel that in your pocketbook. Mm-hmm. As opposed to saying, then the choice is going to go to we feel good as Ford because we're a great design. We've got a better product made by higher quality, workers. It's just and you focus on the quality and the brand loyalty and all the things that made Ford successful for so many years, as opposed to saying, it's just going to come down to price. Yeah. You're basically commoditizing your product before it becomes a commodity. Why would you take that approach? That makes no sense to me.
That's a really good point.
How do you set yourself apart by basically saying, it's just going to be about price? That's what's going to come down to. Whoever's cheapest, that's who's going to win this. That's just ridiculous.
Well, that's not really what he said. Don't you think it's important that he's speaking to one of the documented barriers between people and EVs?
But that's a benefit. That's a positive thing. What he did here, the way I read it, is he's basically saying, we've got all these cost reductions. That's great. And everybody is going to universally see all of these cost reductions. It's going to bring the price of EVs down. More people can afford them, which basically means it's going to come down to a price war to determine who's going to win. That doesn't make sense to me. Why wouldn't you say, this is great news, guys. Bear with us for a couple of years. And then when you want an EV, you're going to be able to come to Ford because we've got a better product at a better price.
Yeah, with a better legacy. And if
so what?
Go
ahead. Go ahead. No.
No, I was just going to say, if they're all $25,000, you're going to have to do something to set yourself apart, like advertise.
Right?
Yeah. This has to be, I wonder how you take it if you're part of Ford Blue, the EV side of the business. Is this a good or a bad thing?
To any of your workers, you're basically saying, hey guys, you're doing the same job as everybody else and you're just going to have to figure out how to cut costs here and make it cheaper.
Yeah. You better do it better.
I don't think you need to assume that when he says that the price is going to go down, that he's saying our car is whatever.
But it's going to be all he said.
Is that all he said, or is that all that's in this article?
That was in the article. That's what this article said, and he doubled down on it numerous times, talking about fewer fasteners, takes less workstations, all this other stuff. Yeah, that's all he talked about. This was an opportunity for him to say, not only are we going to be able to make it more cost effectively, because you don't want to say cheaper, but we're also going to be able to make it better.
Well, maybe because of the audience he was speaking to, that's why he was talking about, how Ford wants a, quote, radical simplification of labor, which, to your point, Jeff, you said half the fixtures, half the workstations, half the welds, and 20% less fasteners. Just seemed like an odd number to throw out. Yeah. We specifically know we need 20% less fasteners. Luckily, they didn't say in half the workforce. It's interesting to see this revolution push design changes, which I like. A lot of the things that he was talking about are things that, Tesla has already become really good at perfecting and kind of set it apart as a market leader. Other things that sort of caught my attention were he did mention that a la carte subscription models. Mm-hmm. So autonomous driving as a service. Features that could be rented for a period of time or by the mile, which I don't know if I like that idea. Where it's just hold on a second, we got to drive 3 hours. I'm going to buy a little bit of autonomous driving to get us there. Maybe it's cheaper. I don't know. That just seems like a reoccurring cost or a subscription cost that winds up becoming more of an annoyance rather than should have just been a feature to the car.
Yeah, VW kicked this around, I think, a year ago or so. We talked about it on the podcast, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think we were all very anti that idea.
Yeah, very against it. I just don't understand that if one car has autonomous driving standard and yours is as a service, I'm going to take the standard one.
Well, and does it?
That seems like an odd one to throw out there as an a la carte.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now Michelle Krebs who is an executive analyst with Cox Automotive. She mentioned that it sounds like a lot of things have to fall into place to make this happen. So maybe both your points are right. And Anna, he's kind of talking to people saying costs are coming down to EVs. It's going to be more realistic. And Jeff, maybe he was talking to more of the people on the corporate side saying costs are going to come down, So maybe he was trying to serve a couple of masters there.
Look at you, just trying to ease the
bring us all together. Well, and I would say to both of your points too, like achieving this, and just you can't just talk about cost and then also kill your marketing department and also take dealers out of the equation, because we know that dealers are front-facing salespeople. That's like marketing in and of itself. Mm-hmm. You can't eliminate marketing. You can't eliminate dealerships and then not promote the quality side of the business, right? So something that's not going to work. You got to do.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, that statement felt like it was targeted towards board members or stockholders who are saying, "Well, Tesla does it. Why can't you?" Mm-hmm. Well, no, Tesla doesn't do it at the same scale.
Yeah. What does the future Ford EV dealer look like? Is it, one car from each model that you can test drive and then you order it online?
Well, that was the one thing I did like about his comments was we talked about, and he won't say just in time, but essentially that's what he's talking about, having just enough inventory on the lot to make sense. Mm-hmm. And that I would agree with. I think that's one of the things that historically has always gotten the automotive industry into a lot of trouble. They overproduce in terms of the number of vehicles they make. They're stuck with extras. They cut deals to rental car companies where they're losing money on vehicles. So that approach does make a ton of sense here. That I would agree with him on.
All right. Our most popular story this week. It made a lot of sense coming out of a holiday weekend. The world's largest bottle of whiskey sells for $1.4 million. The world's largest bottle of Macallan single malt Scotch whiskey sold at auction this week for a cool $1.4 million. The bottle is 5 feet 11 inches tall and called the Intrepid. It holds 311 liters of whiskey, which is enough to fill about 444 standard bottles, or, if you're interested, 2 bathtubs. Daniel Monk came up with the idea for the bottle as a tribute to his father, explorer Captain Stanley Monk. Stanley Monk. The whiskey was aged in 2 casks for 32 years before being bottled last year. Despite its massive size, the Intrepid is still not the most expensive ever sold. An older bottle of Macallan sold at auction in 2019 for $1.9 million. A regular-sized bottle. It was purchased, the big bottle, the Intrepid, was purchased by an anonymous buyer who might be in another anonymous club soon. Anna, I know that you always like examples of gross wealth. So I wanted to start with you on this one.
Yep.
$2 million for a massive bottle of whiskey.
1.4.
Yeah.
Not even that much.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Not even that much.
A drop in the Mercedes bucket.
Yeah. I was the anonymous buyer. The clock is ticking on this because I don't know what you do with that much whiskey. Like I think whiskey is generally considered to go bad after like a year or two of opening. So whoever cracks this thing is going to be like on the clock. Yeah. You got to fill up those 2 bathtubs right away and then just get to sipping. I guess I don't.
You just maybe they're having a wedding soon.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. So I learned that if your whiskey smells or tastes bad, you should discard it immediately. That's how you know if it's gone bad.
Oh, there's plenty of whiskey I've had before that I should have just discarded.
Yeah, I would say keep me away from this thing.
How do you know if it's like 5? Well, anyway,
pull the drain.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to know a little more detail about the charitable organizations that they say benefited from this undertaking. And I'm not saying anything here to like.
You just like to know.
Yeah, I just like to know. I mean, it's a very feel-good story, but they talked about gaining exposure via the auction, gaining exposure for exploration and general positivity, which is about the most nebulous thing I have ever heard.
That's quite generic. Just general positivity.
We're just trying to raise awareness of general positivity.
I like it.
Whatever that is. Mm-hmm. So we just want to raise awareness of like flowers, rainbows, just like general positivity. Mm-hmm. So according to the auction house, the project is supporting the explorers' chosen environmental, physical, and mental well-being charities. So they put out, obviously, these explorers on the outside of the bottle.
Yeah. Oh, so like the 11 explorers on the bottle, it's their charities?
I guess so.
Oh, all right.
But they did not go in any detail there. So I hope that that's like a significant portion of this $1.4 million. Because otherwise, the awareness thing, the big bottle thing, I don't know. I guess I'm very suspicious of awareness campaigns. And, I feel like this tends to be like a big PR blitz for a company like this. Yeah. That maybe they have a vested interest in the whiskey industry, but I don't know that for sure. I would like to know more detail on where this money really went. Yeah. And if, I don't know, if this was just like a big like media push for something that, I don't know.
Jeff, when in doubt, if you need PR, just make a real big version of what you do.
That's fair. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Now, what's interesting here is this really isn't even a McCallum thing. This was where this came about was from this FMHG Holdings group. Mm-hmm. The guy who did that for his dad or whatever, he is the founder of this, basically this holdings group, which off their LinkedIn page, they said they started with a vision and was founded in early 2017. They're now the world's first SEC registered US publicly traded company with subsidiaries in the UK and Thailand. This next part is the best. Investing in whiskey has for a long time been the reserve of the super wealthy or the whiskey expert. FMHG Holdings Group is here to change that.
Yeah, they changed it.
They did that with a $1.4 million, 6-foot tall bottle of whiskey.
Intrepid.
Yeah. Here at FMHG, we own and operate what we aim to become the world's most extensive collection of rare and collectible single malt Scotch whiskey. As a publicly traded company, we are launching the world's first investable whiskey collection, allowing you the opportunity to invest in our 100% owned and managed rare whiskey collection. So basically, this was just to get some money into their holding group, which is all about investing in whiskey, apparently.
I want to invest in general positivity. How do I do that?
Carefully.
More smiles and hugs, I think.
It's like a lot of smiles.
So according to producer Alex, 444 standard bottles, that's only 1.21 bottles a day.
Right. That's only.
And the bad thing is this was an interesting calculation at 1.4 because that's about 10 times what you would pay for 444 bottles of 30-year-old whiskey.
Oh, okay.
That would run you about $140,000. This guy paid $1.4 million.
So
but he got a big one.
Who's the secret buyer?
Richard Branson. I don't know. I don't know if he likes whiskey. I hope he likes hugs though. No. I am a sucker for any story that starts world's largest. So, we've done stories on world's largest wine bottles ever made. Some company in Wisconsin, I think, just made the world's largest scoop to go on an excavator. And man, when I saw that story pop up, I'm like, yep, I'm an easy target. Give it to me. So as more of these stories come in, please forward them to david@ien.com. No, I just thought it's an interesting story. It's kind of a feel-good story, especially we kind of see a lull in terms of traffic after a holiday. And man, people showed up for the big whiskey.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, before we move into, in case you missed it, stories that, were maybe not as popular on our website, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward, we have a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost-effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
All right, and we're back with In Case You Missed It. Again, the stories that, maybe weren't as popular, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. All right, I'm going to go first this week with a story about Dyson and how they recently teased secret robot prototypes. Last week, Dyson showed off a few robot prototypes now in development as part of a presentation at the International Conference on Robotics and Automation. In a video, Dyson's chief engineer, Jake Dyson, who is James Dyson's son, shows off some of the company's secret R&D work, including robots doing the dishes, setting the table, and even cleaning up children's toys. He also took a shot at Roomba when he said they're developing a vacuum robot puck that actually vacuums.
Oh, burn.
And I, for one, will be in the market for one of those. It doesn't just push things into bigger and bigger piles of dirt. The company plans to ramp up robotics in a big way in the next few years. And while Dyson is typically more top secret, the engineer wants to show off this cool tech to try and entice engineering talent. The company wants to recruit 250 robotics engineers in the near term and plans to add another 700 over the next 5 years. So Dyson is undergoing a talent infusion, and they've already hired 2,000 people this year, about half of which are engineers, scientists, and coders. The company is trying to build the UK's largest, most advanced robotics hub and bring the technology into our homes by 2029. I'm always interested in sort of the futuristic robotic stuff, but this is real world, how it can help people in the house. And typically when we see home-based robots, we see them more geared towards the elderly. This just seemed like a couple of things I could really use in terms of, like, in the video, he says, I spend half my life cleaning up after my kids. And my wife said that morning. I watched the video. I'm like, well, this is a fine, useful product here. I mean, it's a little weird when you see the robots that are scanning the faces in the room to make sure they're human. I mean, you just really want to make sure that before that robot goes to grab something, it is a bunny and not a baby. Just like, kid, put it away. Just like, well, that just mashed my poor child's face. No, I thought it was really interesting. And I like, as it's getting more competitive out there for talent, people are getting more and more outspoken about some of the cool reasons you want to work for their company. And it looks really cool to work at Dyson. They basically bought an airfield in the London area, and they've transformed these hangars into these R&D centers. It's just cool. Of course they have vacuum tech hangars, but they've got a lot of cool robot tech going on, and I found it really interesting. Anna, you have to be interested by the prospect of, in the next 7 years, we'll still be in the market for a robot that picks up toys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love watching the stuff that James Dyson does, because you can tell he has like a personal interest in innovation. So, he dumps a lot of his own money, I think, into some of these pet projects. And, he knows when to walk away. Like when he was working on that car, he did invest $1 billion into it before walking away.
Yeah.
But he did walk away before he put that baby on the stock market and tried to, you know what I mean? Like we've seen a lot of failed cars that have taken a lot more people down with them. I don't know. He's kind of one to watch. I think he's does some exciting things, and it's pretty fun to see what they're doing. Yeah,
Jeff, it's a family that they use their engineering and innovation to solve problems that they personally want to address.
Well, it was kind of cool, too, the way he rolled it out, as opposed to Elon Musk saying, we're going to make more money off of robots that are going to be doing stuff like I don't want to do, like grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy's going, you know what? It really sucks, these things that we got to do at home. And we're working on solutions, and we're investing in people to try to make it happen. Yeah. So just the way he rolled it out is, I think, what I appreciated the most, because I'm sort of past having to pick up after the kids all the time now. Yeah. Now it's more like making sure they don't crash the car into the garage and other things like that. So
still got cats. Clean up after those cats.
Good call. That is a very good
toys,
call.
Yep.
This is the logical next step to having a real life Rosie in all of our houses.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. That's cool.
Yeah. Anna, what is your, in case you missed it this week?
Okay, I selected a story that brings awareness to general positivity.
Great.
About a student at Miami-Dade College who has demonstrated the capabilities of new technology, enabling him to speed around a track in a NASCAR race car using the power of his mind.
Wow.
His name is German Aldana Zuniga, and he lost the use of his arms and legs after a car crash at age 16 injured his spinal cord. So 9 years later, Zuniga is part of a study that's been spearheaded by the University of Miami's Project to Cure Paralysis. And it utilizes a brain implant that allows the user to drive using their mind. So it's using what's called a BMI, or brain machine interface, and it functions as a sensor on the brain's surface. When the user thinks of a task, the brain activates and the sensor picks up that signal to transmit the action. So This young man was terrified to do this. He had a lot of trauma relating to his accident that he had. He had never driven a car before because he was only 16 when the accident occurred. And so you got to give him a ton of props for not only being involved in like the research side of it, but also just, giving this a shot. And while the driving part is very cool, the researchers are really amped up about the ways that this BMI could work to enable people with physical limitations to do things like turn on a light switch in their house or move a cursor on a computer screen. Really kind of game-changing technology that could be applied to so many applications. So I just really enjoyed the story, and I wanted to make sure that, if anyone else wanted to see it, you should check out the video. It's very cool.
No, I completely agree. Some of the advancements, we've talked about Neuralink a lot in the past, but some of the advancements that are happening to help these people, live I don't want to say more normal life, but an easier life.
Just experience the things that everybody else does on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't even.
This is this is so far like beyond my scope of understanding in terms of the technology, but it is amazing and it's wonderful. And this was through the University of Miami. Is that right? So that kind of brings up an interesting question as well. We do talk about Neuralink, and we know some other companies that are investing in this type of technology. What is the better way to go? I mean, in a lot of instances, I've advocated for private companies and investing money in trying to come up with products that are potentially sellable down the line. But in this instance, is it quicker to work with an institution like this that doesn't have any other agenda? They basically just want to help somebody. So it's kind of a different course to take in implementing this type of stuff, because this is incredible technology.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe there's a little like, a lot of those innovation hubs at universities, they spin out.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a little bit of, when it's profitable, they'll figure out a way to.
True. Agreed.
And patent income.
Yeah.
Long. But yeah,
also
I agree.
Feeds other programs.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was. We went to Gem of Wisconsin, the world's Bratfest last weekend. And
a Gem of Wisconsin.
Yeah, like everyone should go. It's amazing. It is quintessentially, it's very Wisconsin. But there was somebody that we went, actually, Andy Zoll, who fills in on the podcast every once in a while, his band is playing, Railhopper, check them out. But they, when we were sitting there watching it, there was a person in a wheelchair, and a robotic arm was letting him drink. And I was just awesome. We got to sit there next to these people, both enjoying a beverage after work hours, and maybe a little before. But, just seeing some of this technology, a lot of times we report on it, but you don't see it out there in the world. And to start seeing it is, it's really cool. Jeff, what is your, in case you missed it this week?
So, article that caught my eye was entitled "The Wall of Wind Blows Away Buildings at Cat 5 Hurricane Strength." So basically, studies are showing that tropical storms are ramping up in intensity with climate change and ocean and air temperature increases. So designing homes and infrastructure within the path of these storms is becoming a more critical need. We've got a storm that was registered at over 200 miles per hour not too long ago in the Gulf of Mexico. So basically at Florida International University, they have this facility. It's a covered wall of 12 giant fans, each as tall as an average person, and working together, they can simulate a 160 mile an hour hurricane. When the water jets simulate wind-driven rain, at the other end of the building opens up to a large field where the engineers can see how and where structures fall apart, where the debris flies, basically what works and what doesn't, and developing better materials for construction as well as techniques for keeping these buildings together. It's bad enough that they're going to fall down, but then essentially a lot of these materials become shrapnel in the air, taking people out and becoming more and more dangerous. So really what and the article goes into more detail about the different testing that they do. The thing that stuck out to me is in a lot of instances, we already have either the materials or the know-how. Implementing them is what we have to figure out. And it's not always that expensive. In some of the cases, they were able to better secure these buildings for as little as a couple $100s in terms of that. So when we look at building codes, when we look at helping people in some of these lesser developed countries just keep their house upright, it's pretty incredible work that they're doing down there and pretty cool stuff.
Well, and even if you don't want to read the article, you have to come and watch the video because even if it's the first 10 seconds, where they open. I mean, they're in an airplane. They're like in an air hangar too. They open the hangar doors and you're just like, what is that? Is a giant fan.
Yeah.
That's many giant fans.
It looks awesome.
And there's no scale until you realize you see the tiny people like on the sides pulling the doors open. You're like, and my first instinct is, I want to stand in front of it and see like how long
until you see how it just disintegrates that building.
I don't think you do.
Just like tears the shirt off and you're like, ah! No,
that's how you picture it going.
I mean, yeah, I feel like the shirt goes first
Just
because
like a
it'll
Superman
be like it'll be like a button down Hawaiian shirt. So that'll go first.
A polo shirt?
Material. Not a polo shirt ever. The jeans will stay, but but as a result,
you have thought about this way too much detail.
Yeah, but like, if you crouch down too much, like the jeans might catch wind, which will actually cause you to propel, like,
I think
work
you
more
are.
like sails.
I think you are gone a split second after your shirt.
Probably, but we're just not going to know.
So you try it.
I'm going to stand, and I think I can stand up to the wind. It's when they hit me with those water jets. That's when I'm going to get taken out.
Have you considered wearing a windbreaker?
No, but I mean, essentially, it would be like sort of like a flying squirrel suit sort of simulation. Like they have the simulated parachuting where you go on top of the fan. Mm-hmm. This, could just be simulated squirrel suit gliding just in front of it. I mean, actually, this could be a new attraction at your local, Wisconsin Dells Water Park.
I would give it some more thought.
I don't know.
I mean, keep thinking about it the entire weekend.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in it.
Put a pin in it.
I can't wait to bring this up at dinner. We have a couple of comments. One from Seth. Seth says, I only collect 5-foot bottles of whiskey. So I'm assuming Seth's still at 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mystery buyer.
Is he copping to it? Is Seth the anonymous buyer?
We don't know.
If so, headed there after we wrap up here, Seth. Also, we had a comment from Ditto Dan on the podcast last week that I wanted to bring up. He says, what's with all the Tesla bashing?
Oh.
Week after week, you guys bash Tesla with articles like you are trying to build a mountain out of a molehill. Try saying something good about Tesla. There are plenty of things Tesla does good that are good for the world. Anna, anything positive about Tesla?
Well, oh yeah. I mean,
I feel like we normally say positive things about Tesla and Musk. And I'm just like, I think you're just not listening, Ditto Dan.
Well, I mean, sorry if we're giving that impression. I certainly don't have a horse in that race. I do think that Tesla is an absolute pioneer when it comes to EVs and sort of set the stage for how this technology develops and what is expected. Yeah. I mean, where would EVs be maybe without somebody like Tesla to come in and like make them cool? I don't know. It
would just still be that documentary, The Death of the Electric Car or whatever.
Yeah. And I think these stories come up because Tesla's the innovator.
Yeah.
You just see more, trial and error, I guess,
Well, more trial and error and more public interest. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, more public interest at failures than, we've talked about it before, but like nobody is interested in everything goes well, everything's fine. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty consistent in my admitting to waffling between everything Elon Musk, between him being a genius and a jackass. I mean, I think he kind of runs the spectrum there.
Yeah, I think he'd own that. I think he would own that. I was just, I wanted to bring it up because in case you missed it, we ran like 3 Tesla stories today. Like it's a big news day for Tesla. Yeah. And Tesla basically, Musk basically put an end to all remote workers this week. And I was going to bring that up in case you missed it, because I think that is a positive thing and we don't have to get into it. But, I was about to say something positive. It's just that, Dyson has cool robots and I went Dyson instead of, like our 70th consecutive podcast talking about Musk, which we got to it.
Sweet. Somebody won the drinking game.
All right. Well, let's move on to our final thoughts before we get out of here. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
So as I mentioned a few weeks back, I canceled my Netflix subscription. And so I've had to like dig deep a little bit to try to find some new stuff. But anyway, I found this show this week that actually came out in February and I found it on demand. It's on the History Channel, or was on the History Channel. And it's called Adam Eats the 80s.
Oh.
And if anyone is familiar with Man vs. Food, the show that it's since been canceled, but it was on a few years back. Adam Richman, he would go and do these food challenges. But this was like a limited series. It's 10 episodes. And he goes back to all these places and has them try to recreate some discontinued products from the 80s.
Oh, nice.
Like there was a breakfast pizza for 6 months that Domino's put out. And so he went to like the original Domino's franchise and they made him one.
Oh, man.
But
it's cool. So like, what is he, did he have, what was it? Like, what's the Pepsi one or?
Oh, Crystal Pepsi. I haven't got to that yet. I'm assuming that will come up. But like, you remember those like Keebler Magic Middle cookies that were like chocolate on the inside, this chocolate goo on the inside, and outside they were shortbread?
I do not remember
those. Bonkers.
Oh, yeah.
I know the name. What were those?
Were Bonkers like Gushers?
They were like the Starburst equivalent, except they had 2 fruits.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of weird stuff in there. The McDLT, he had one of those made for him. And he did a taste test of French fries from the 80s before McDonald's stopped using beef tallow to fry them.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot
of...
It's called Adam Eats the 80s. Anyway, if you love 80s nostalgia, which I do, you may enjoy that. So just a tip.
Man, that is... I'm going to check that out. That sounds definitely, yeah. My final thought is just that this week I had a chance to go to what is essentially the equivalent of the Catalina wine mixer. And my wife had a work event, and it was a lot of fun to go and just kind of get outside of your bubble a little bit and meet some new people. And everyone had a really cool, interesting story. And it was just, I've been out to one trade show since, and so this was like a networking event completely outside of the industries that I normally operate in. It was just kind of fun to be like, hey, what do you do? And I happened to say that to like the president of the entire thing. But after that icebreaker, he really got into it. And I was just like, went to the next guy, like, what do you do? He's like, oh, I listen to him. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm starting to understand the hierarchy here. But it was just a lot of fun. And I'm appreciating it, getting nicer as summer's rolling in and kind of getting out into the world a little bit more, remembering that we're all humans, being nice to one another and not getting back to normal, but just remembering what normal is.
I would agree. Yeah. The last weekend, I got a chance to go to a concert for the first time in a long time. And the concert itself was great. Mm-hmm. But yeah, being out amongst people doing a similar activity like that was just, it was cool.
Yeah. Look at this. We're all humans smiling and having fun. Yeah. It's great.
That's cool.
Jeff, what's your final thought this week?
Well, that was kind of it.
Okay.
But we'll also get into trivia. Good thing we go over all this and are so well organized.
Concise final thought. Well, no, I did the same thing. It was great.
Yep.
No.
I'll stop agreeing with you, David, if that's what's throwing you off here.
No. I want to know trivia because I was pretty sure I actually got one right this time.
You did. And actually, we had a lot of people respond. Unfortunately, Jesse Fowler was the only one who got the correct answer. We asked of all the people, all the celebrity types that we have covered in terms of were there different stories that involved them, whether it was Anton Yelchin, Brad Pitt, Aaron Rodgers, Britney Spears, or Jay-Z, which one got the most engagement on our website. And unfortunately, it was Anton Yelchin. As Jesse alluded to, he was killed when his Jeep rolled out of gear, pinned him against the gate at his home, and he passed. And that was the correct answer. Brad Pitt was a very close second. Aaron Rodgers and this Brad Pitt got all that attention with those homes that he built after Hurricane Katrina. Did not work out.
Crumbling.
Aaron Rodgers came in third with his work in trying to develop a safer helmet. Britney Spears and some of the issues with her her products.
Merch manufacturing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She came in fourth, and Jay-Z and some of his issues with his apparel line came in fifth. However, the actor that has actually gotten the most attention, if you recall back, was a South Korean actor named Ji Sang-sun. He was one of the first ones who had a Tesla that started on fire. Actually, that story got twice as much engagement as any of these other ones.
More than all these people combined.
So he would have actually been around. But like I said, congratulations to Jesse for getting the correct answer. Going in that same vein this week, looking forward, we did a lot of automotive stories. We always do a lot of automotive stories, but went back and Tesla far and away because he had the most engagement for any vehicle manufacturers on the site. Yeah. But the question is, who is second? Over the last year, which automaker has gotten the highest level of engagement in terms of stories on our site?
I know.
Ford, GM, Toyota, Stellantis, or Nissan. So those are your 5 options. Let me know who you think has gotten the most attention. This is just over the last year. The most engagement, I should say.
So like from June to June?
June to June.
Oh, okay. Yep.
June 1st to June 1st of last year to June 1st this year. Again, Ford, GM, Toyota, Stellantis, or Nissan, which vehicle maker has had the highest level of engagement? Okay. Not the most stories, the highest number of page views.
Right. All right. Well, I look forward to getting to that next week. And I mean, this last one was pretty easy. I'm having a tough time on this one. So we'll crunch some numbers. All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help out the podcast a lot by leaving us a positive review on whatever platform you listen to. Finally, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line if you want to reach out. Finally, make sure to subscribe to our weekly and daily newsletters. Make sure you get the podcast to your inbox first. All right, for Jeff and Anna, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.